Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. Happy new moon, or whenever you might be watching this. Welcome to our August community call, Stories of Courage. So every month, Sydney and I come up with a theme that we think might work in terms of the migration through the year, but also what's happening in the world around us, and also, of course, linking up to the month before and the work that we're working through and some of the things that are happening within the community and that we're hearing from our clients and whatnot. And so this month was about courage. And as you might have seen in the community posting about what that might mean and some ideas around it on a daily basis. So in our community calls, the monthly time that we can gather together, or at least record something that we can do in virtual land, we certainly try to do different formats. And this month we did 3 interviews of people that we know, Sydney and I. Sydney's sorry she can't be here tonight. She's actually has another commitment. So I'm leading the show this evening. But we interviewed 3 people about stories of courage, or how courage shows up in their lives, and they're very different. And we have 2 shorter versions and then 1 longer interview. 2 are video, 1 is an audio, and so we're going to move through this, each of them. You'll see some themes emerge, even though these are 3 very different people with very different experiences and stories to share. One of the things that I want to talk about is often, and you'll hear it kind of reflected in some of the things people talk about, is, and certainly Cleo in particular, that they don't really see themselves as being courageous. Often when we think of courage, we think of bravery, and we think of these heroic efforts, like, you know, the fireman who bursts forth into the fire. But in fact, when we think about what courage means, cor, meaning in Latin heart, that it's when we speak or act from our heart, from the heart, right? When we find strength of character in the face of pain, in face of fear, in face of grief. If you watch the video with Natasha later, you'll hear me kind of say those things and refer to Brené, and you can hear the joke that she makes about that. Please don't take offense if any of you do watch that one in particular. However, you know, when we think of courage being about that level of strength, we can see how many of us probably have had moments, at least, of courage in our life. That moment when we are urged to do that which we know we must from our own heart place, not from this external demands upon us. So sometimes we do things because we think it's what we're supposed to do, or what we're influenced to do by those around us. And then there comes this time when we just need to move and do something or speak out from our heart. And that's an act of courage. And so I hope that as you hear these stories, or these conversations perhaps, you reflect on how that might actually show up in your life in different ways, okay? So the first one, and I apologize in advance for the audio on this one. I will tell you right now, there's a little bit of noise in the background. Hopefully you can still hear it clearly, but we were actually doing this interview while we were on an evening walk. So, okay, here we go.
Hi, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Aaron Merk.
So Aaron, we're doing stories of courage. What does courage mean to you?
Courage means to me about starting each day not knowing what is going to come my way, but I keep a positive attitude, and I trust that everything will work out if I apply the right principles and keep an open and honest mind.
Can you tell me how courage has played a role in your life? Or when you've been... Courage, so here's my definition of courage. Courage comes from the word cor, meaning heart. So it's acting from the heart, even though those around you, there's maybe so many influences around you that tell you not to do something, but you follow your heart and do what's best for you, in spite of maybe a whole bunch of other things going on. So in taking that definition,
courage then would be when my life had to start over. When all the things that were going on in my life are stacked against me. And I made the decision and choice to do whatever it takes to push through and take my life back.
that was an act of courage, right?
I would guess. So?
Is it hard work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every day. Some days are harder. Some days are better. Some days are easier. Some days are great. Some days are awesome.
How do you connect to your own heart?
I tune into myself and listen to how I'm feeling and where my heart and head is at.
What does higher power mean for you?
Higher power to me is something bigger than myself. Something that I can turn my struggles, my weaknesses, my strengths, my prayers over to, and ask for the strength to guide me through when I don't know the way or the how to do so.
It came up in our group today how someone has a hard time. They don't necessarily believe in God. They're more agnostic, but that it's hard to understand that from a spiritual place without having this belief in something. How would you respond to that?
Higher power doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be. It can be anything. It can be the universe. It can be a light bulb. It can be a balloon.
Sometimes I say it's like even sometimes it's just our families or communities or the love and the connection that we feel to other people can be an easier thing sometimes to trust in or understand.
Yeah, it could be something or someone that allows you to continue, push forward, give to, pass on, let go, let to. Place to just pass your troubles and your struggles and your worries and your challenges to something, somewhere, someone, so you don't have to do it all alone.
Would you identify as having anxiety?
I would say a lot of times in a day that I have anxiety, but the best thing I did was learn to identify what anxiety was. this uncomfortableness and this stress and tension and worry and uncomfortableness.
Mm-hmm.
Anxiety to me.
Yeah. How do you, because most people when they feel uncomfortable want to get rid of the uncomfortableness, that right? We're really not comfortable with not being comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you learn how to just tolerate more of that uncomfortableness as you changed your life?
First of all, again, the most important thing for me was to be able to learn to identify it, what that feeling was of anxiety and that uncomfortableness, and taking the moment to stop and be able to slow things down and identify that these feelings of uncomfortableness and stress and anxiety were just me trying to do too many things at once. So when I catch myself trying to do too many things at once, I stop, I pull over, I take a breath, close my eyes, try to go to my happy place, or meditate, or say a prayer. And ask me for patience, ask myself for patience and the strength to make it through whatever I'm going through. And somehow, some way, it seems to work itself out.
Lo and behold, it goes away.
It goes away.
Okay. How do you want to show up in your life right now?
I want to show up healthy, happy, humble.
He's going with the H words.
Strong, grounded.
Thanks, Sarah.
So that first interview was with Erin, who I'm very grateful for doing an impromptu interview on our evening walk. I think one of the things that I got out of this conversation is, I think for many of us, just moving through our day-to-day lives and showing up more authentically and in a healthier, happier way is an act of courage sometimes when there's thoughts or habitual patterns in our past that have kind of kept us maybe more critical or judgmental of ourselves or others. And so allowing space to connect with something other than the running hamster wheel in the head of negativity and connecting to a heart space allows us to feel that love and allows us to show up, right? When we're moving out from this space and into the world, is that act of courage, So our next interview, Sydney did with her friend Cleo from the Vancouver Island, and I will let her, she does an introduction at the beginning, so.
I want to introduce to everybody my friend Cleo, who I met this year, I guess, over the past year. We used to run into each other. I would teach yoga, and I think at the time you were setting up the Wellness Collective. But
Yeah.
Cleo is the founder of Panacea.
Yeah, so Panacea Massage.
Also the founder of the Comox Wellness Collective here on Vancouver Island. And I have been amazed with Cleo, because she's running both of these businesses, and then also seeing her pivot and shift through COVID. And I think she might have frozen.
Oh.
Did you get all that, Cleo?
I think so, yeah. You're not frozen, but I might be.
with it.
My face will probably be in an awkward position for that whole time. But that's
no, you were great. We've all been there too. But so my friend Glenda, actually, who I know from Toronto, she and I have been working on this community called Mindful Healing Space, and wanted to talk about courage this month. And because courage is contagious, we thought that it would be really fun to offer up stories of courage from people who we've been inspired by. And so, Cleo, you were somebody who popped in my brain immediately.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I'd love to chat about courage more with you. And I thought it seemed kind of appropriate to really hone in on, you know, the whole COVID time and what that looks like for you, because I think it offered a new opportunity for courage for all of us. And I definitely was amazed at how you pivoted so quickly in that time. So Cleo also, just for everybody's background, started the Love Local Food Company here. So kind of a real shift from the businesses you were doing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so it's a local food delivery that comes to people's doorsteps, but it supports our local farms and suppliers and local businesses that we're still able to be operational or to a capacity during COVID. So a lot of the farms that go to the farmers markets or would supply our local restaurants were having this surplus of goods that they needed to be delivered, and then people were depending on grocery stores, which of course we need to, and major box stores to kind of supply them in a delivery format so that people weren't going to stores during COVID, obviously wanting to stay home and be safe. So we saw an opportunity to kind of fill a void but still support our local community of other suppliers and small businesses that were able to be more functional during that time. So we actually do doorstep delivery of all local product here in the Comox Valley, and we're moving to a bi-weekly basis right now, but it's weekly or bi-weekly depending on how crazy the months are. There's lots of opportunities right now with farmers markets being more open, which is great. So during COVID we were weekly, and the need was there at that time. And we just have a downtown Courtney box going out this coming week, which is a special edition box, which has Atlas Cafe and Mud Sharks and a bunch of other cool stuff in there. So we're kind of feeling like there's a lot of opportunity for still supporting our community in different ways. And yeah, that's kind of the basis of it. Very different than massage therapy and wellness, but wellness is multifaceted, as we both know. So in a way, it's not too far of a stretch from what we were doing before, but just different things. Managing veggies versus people.
Yeah, and so now in essence, you are running 3 different businesses.
Yeah,
well, which are storefronts.
Yeah, so Love Local is actually a partnership with my friend Holly Brotherston, and she is amazing, and she's the other half of Love Local Food Co. So I'm not doing that one myself, thank goodness, but the other two, the Wellness Collective is also kind of a partnership of all sorts of different businesses working in a common space to kind of have similar wellness goals. And then Panacea is kind of my first baby. That one is where I work as an RMT there as well, and have other massage therapists and an acupuncturist. So so technically I guess there is 3, but I get lots of help. I'm not doing it all by myself, or else I would be very, very tired. So not that I'm not already, but
yeah, I'm sure. When you look back to that time in March and April, when all the shifts started happening and we started collecting indoors, what kind of thoughts were going on through your brain at that time?
I think we all have our process of when we deal with things that are out of our norm, kind of thing, or when there's any major tragedy or changes that kind of force us to look at the bigger picture of things. And I'm not going to pretend that I didn't mourn it and have a really kind of sad couple weeks of being like, like how can my business survive this and all of that. I mean, every small business owner has had some hard hard times during that very challenging time. And we're still experiencing that of kind of coming out of COVID over the next little bit here. And I'm sure there will be a lot of businesses that don't survive that, which breaks my heart. But when we first started, I definitely had that kind of mourning period, and then I kind of looked at the bigger picture. And I do this a lot in my life, and this is maybe just my personality, but also being a leader, I think too, in those areas and having some management experience, I just kind of look at like, what do I have control over? And I think what the conclusion I came to is I can't be open as a business owner, but how could I support other businesses in providing them support during this time where they might be able to use our services to get more business in a time where they otherwise might have to shut down their doors too. And our local food supply is so important, and to keep that kind of thriving in the Comox Valley, we are so lucky to have so many amazing farms and suppliers right here of good produce. And if they can't get that demand, then they don't have the crops for the next year and the money. And they work such long hours. They don't deserve to lose their businesses and thriving during those times too. So we wanted to try to find that kind of missing link, and we're really happy with what we came up with. It's definitely something that we feel our community needed. And since then, there's been all sorts of different projects that have come out of it, I think too. And we're just we wanted to wing it and see kind of where that would go. And I think that was kind of my initial thought process was, what harm would it do to just try this? And I think I have that in a lot of things in business, and I think that's something that I would kind of encourage other business owners to look at is, what's the next best move is always something I always kind of think of in my head. It's like, what could I do that's going to cause good for my business, good for our community, good for the people around me, and kind of give back in that way. And sometimes it makes you money, and sometimes it loses you money, and it's not about that. It's more about the feeling that you get at the end of the day about being proud of what the work you're creating. And this is very much a passion project for both Holly and I. It's definitely not going to be paying all of our bills anytime soon, and that's not the point of it. It's that we're giving back in a different way. And we saw I think the underlying values of what makes people good business owners is what drives them, and what drives me is helping people. And so I couldn't physically be helping people in my clinic during this time. So what way can I help them in other ways? And providing healthy, nutritious local food was an opportunity I saw. I don't have kids and crazy things at home, so for me, these types of quick transitions are easier maybe than it would be for someone that has a young family and things like that and other responsibilities. I kind of do a lot of work, and I enjoy my work, and so I thrive in kind of doing that right now in this stage of life. So would that be as simple for everyone to just start another business in COVID? Probably not, but it was the right timing for me. And I think when you're passionate about things, you find time in your days to make it happen. You forget you're working until midnight sometimes. Right then, I know you've been there, I'm sure, yourself. I'll start.
The dog baby.
She likes to be involved, so. But yeah, so I don't know if that kind of makes sense. I think I'm transitioning into different questions here, but yeah, I would say.
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think what I heard in a lot of that too is you were asking yourself some really powerful questions to get your brain thinking in new ways and exploring what there was that you could do in this time, I think is so important. I mean, that's the basis of the work that I do as a coach is like asking the right questions and getting curious.
I mean, it's so easy, and everyone has every right to go down that negative spiral in the last couple months of oh my gosh, woe is me, the world's ending, there's so much negative things going on. It's so easy to get stuck in that, and I'm not saying that there isn't value to feeling those feels, because you have to. And I had my cry sessions, I'm sure, as everyone did, and then I thought about, okay, what can I do right now? And I think for me, mental health wise, it was important for me to keep moving and to be doing something. I don't do well with idleness. I think a lot of business owners probably don't, because we're used to being very, very busy. So to me, it actually made more sense for me to do something like this and start something that would keep me from going a little crazy of sitting there staring at the wall for 3 months. Because I think if your underlying values are helping people, there's lots of ways you can help people, whether that's, volunteering, or whether that would be, doing something different in your world that kind of motivates you for when you could open your doors. That looked differently for everyone. And I don't feel like it's interesting when you said that the topic was courage, because I don't feel that courageous. I don't think I have myself in that way. I would say you kind of just adapt accordingly. And that's how I adapt. And that was kind of, what I needed for my mental health and what I felt the community needed at the time. But I didn't feel like I was, I didn't save anyone's life. I didn't, it's just the little things that kind of made it kind of worthwhile to do, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a very common sentiment for
Yeah.
anybody in a moment of courage, is it just feels like something you have to do.
Yeah. And I think you can't focus on the outcomes a lot of the time too. You have to kind of just do what feels right sometimes. And our business brain and our hearts can kind of battle, because they're not, like I said earlier, it's not always going to make you money. It's not always going to be the number one thing. But the amount of joy it's brought me in the last couple of months, and I'm reviving what I even went into massage therapy for, and it's to help people. And so, when I was transitioning into doing Love Local, I was like, it's really great to bring people something that makes them happy every day. And that looks different in all different ways. But I think it's really important to love what you do. And I genuinely love all of the projects I do. So I just do all of them. Not everyone's going to work for everyone too. But I think it's important to really look at why you value before. And because I couldn't physically do massage therapy, what the core values of the importance of my work is helping people. And so I think that just was an easy transition when you break it down like that, to kind of look at those values and what kind of drives you and motivational factors of that. And that's, for me, that's what it is. It could be very different for someone else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What would you attribute your ability to pivot and shift and have that kind of mindset?
I think I'm slightly crazy, and I can't sit still for very long. So I think that's always been my personality. Is I'm not the type to kind of wallow in things. I think I'm like, okay, something needs to shift here. I'm not quite right, or something's out of balance. And I think that allows me to adapt accordingly. So I wouldn't be the type that would stay in a job that would be making me miserable for a long period of time. I would try and adjust what's making me miserable to begin with. So I think the same thing would be in this case. I think it's maybe some personality traits, but I think also just kind of identifying that the core values for me is helping people, and so I need to be able to do that in whatever capacity. So that it requires change and adapting to change, and that's not always easy to do. I mean, it was definitely uncomfortable at times, and we, on a regular basis, I mean, just yesterday we have this huge Courtney box going out, and we're like, are we crazy? Like, what are we doing? We pull it off somehow, and I mean, I don't think anyone else would notice that we're losing it sometimes, but we try our best, and we're not always going to get it right, and you have to just embrace those imperfections and fumbling through things until you get a process. I mean, we definitely had a few things that were not quite right in our process, and that's how you learn from them, right? But I think not putting so much pressure on ourselves to have it right all the time is also a good thing. To just kind of be forgiving that, like, we're going to mess this up. We're going to forget people's whatever cheese some week, and it's going to happen, and we're going to graciously apologize and hope that they are human about it too. And in the grand scheme of things, the overall reason why we're doing it is good, and that's why we should continue to do it. So if that shifts and it no longer feels good to us, then we'll adjust accordingly at that point. But I think that's all you can really have control over right now. And even
Really, like at any point in time, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, this was a major shift, but it's one of the skills that I think is so important as entrepreneurs, is learning how to like evaluate and shift and learn and grow, and you're constantly in motion with with your business and its
I think
evolution.
it's so normal to be uncomfortable, and it should be. It should be that way. That means you're growing, right? It's like that uncomfortableness is gonna come in waves for a lot of things in your life, and this has been a big one. No one would be able to have planned for this. So I think it's good to just kind of take it one day at a time, and if it's a business that comes out of it, it's a business, but maybe it's an aspect of your business that you've really grown or adapted because you've had the time to look at the bigger picture. And sometimes it's like avoidance. You're not ready to deal with that thing when you're in the grind every single day, but the world will give you time that you can choose what to use that time for, right? So if anything, I think it can be kind of a gift in some ways of time, which a lot of business owners don't have. What would we create if we could create anything and had all the time in the world to do it? And those are questions we should ask more often. And maybe that's just shifts within our own business or our own life. Like maybe people like that they've been able to be home for dinner every single night and they need to adjust their schedule. I think that's also courage of just like knowing that something's not working and kind of adapting your life to work around that a bit. And it's okay to say no as a business owner, and it's okay to create differences. Like I've worked 5 to 6 days a week most of my career, and I'm now down to 3 days a week, and I'm doing Love Local on the other 4th day. And so I have an admin day now as well, and it's like that is something to me that's come out of COVID. It's just more balance and realizing that I might be overextending and not doing anything particularly well when you're feeling like you're holding up all the plates, and trying to juggle all the balls, whatever analogy you want to look at. But yeah, it's good to look at those things.
Definitely, yeah. What would you say is your relationship to fear? I always think of this because I think you can't have courage unless, without, they kind of go hand in hand. They come together. So
all of our major, all of our major events in life are the most fearful things. So I think you have to kind of love-hate relationship with fear. I think if we weren't scared of it, we wouldn't build it up as it being a big thing, and then we can't also celebrate those big things. So I think that's really nice to be fearful. It doesn't always feel, like I was saying, comfortable. You can often feel like you're in over your head, and sometimes you are, and sometimes you have to backpedal, but that's okay too. So I think just being forgiving with yourself, I think is a big thing, and being forgiving with, the growth around you and how that's ever changing, and the environment right now of everything. But I would say my relationship with fear is, there's definitely moments where I feel like I'm like, okay, I this is too much. We gotta change something here. But I think recognizing that you're not always gonna have all the answers, and to try and adapt as you can, kind of thing. So I would say, all good things come out of fearful moments, and I think there's some scary things that come out of fear too, and identifying that those are shifting you in the right direction in the end either way. So just to ride it out, because sometimes it's not going to feel very nice. There will be an end goal that will be worth it. So
Totally, well said.
Yeah.
When have you felt your life required the most courage?
Well, COVID was a big one. I would say that's been a big shift for everyone. I also moved across the country in like a quarter life crisis without knowing anyone here. So I'm from Nova Scotia originally, and I moved to Ucluelet. So my mom was like, you could not get further away. Knew no one, and I was interested in buying a business there, a clinic there, and so I tried it out for a year, and it was the most uncomfortable first couple months because I knew no one. I was like, what did I do? I just had my dog. I had no friends. I was starting a new business there. It was a lot, but it brought me to the West Coast, and now I have this pretty amazing life here in Comox, and I think everything kind of pushes you in the right direction, and sometimes those most fearful things bring you out of your comfort zone, and that's where we need to be, is kind of on that edge of uncomfortableness, living outside of our normal, and that's how we can kind of, big risks come big rewards sometimes too, right? So yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest one, which has kind of escalated everything else that has kind of changed for me. So
Awesome.
yeah.
We've reached our last question. I I know you're a busy lady, obviously, so
Tons of time.
Tried
This is lovely.
to keep it short and sweet. But and you've shared a lot of sort of tools and tactics that you use throughout this process. And if you could summarize, or if you could kind of summarize what tools and tactics you lean towards during times of fear and when you need to rally some courage.
I think someone taught me once a long time ago that like when we're feeling like we need the most is when we need to give the most, and that it comes kind of a full circle. And I think it's good to look at what ways we can be giving more to ourselves, to our business, to our community, to anything, because we got to look externally sometimes. And it is so important in a time like an international pandemic to do that, because that giving, it fills us up and it gives us a clearer picture of what our overall needs are. And I think none of us would be in business if we didn't have a common goal of wanting to do something and create something beautiful for the customers and clients that we have. So I think that's good to question those things and just really have that overall picture look sometimes, and taking time to slow down and give yourself space to actually take it all in, because it's not going to always be that simple to have 3 months to kind of think things through and look at those things, but to give yourself, time every month to be like, where am I at? Am I feeling good about where I'm at? Do I like what I'm creating? Am I proud of the work I create? We never ask those things, and I think it's really, really important that we do, because your business can be going in one direction that you're actually not that happy with, and that's how we can kind of get complacent in the work we provide. And I think there's so much more opportunity when we take away that grind and really look at those underlying factors that make us happy and proud of the work that we do. So I don't know, that was a rambling answer, but
It was right on.
okay. But yeah, I would say just having the time and space to look at the big picture of why you started this to begin with, and do you still enjoy it? Because sometimes it's not always that you want to be a business owner. Maybe you just want to have more time at home and that's okay too. And that's going to change at different phases of life and as different things happen during pandemic. I know a lot of business owners were completely content with closing their door because they were tired and they weren't loving it anymore. And I think that's good to listen to that, and that's okay, because if it's financially, emotionally, mentally, physically no longer working for you, you have to change it. So I think it's just being able to embrace that change, whatever that looks like and works for you for now, right? And none of us know what else is going to happen. I mean, we could be doing the same thing in a couple months here. We're hoping not, but it's just being able to take that as there's nothing else you can do. You have to ride it out either way. So
Yes, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you again for taking.
So that was a great interview with Chloe. I'm going to reiterate a couple of things in case you're curious. So her company is Panacea Wellness, located in Comox, and it's Love Local Food Company. Both of them are on Instagram as well. And there's also a wellness collective that she runs, which you can find through those links as well. There was a couple of things at this point that I want to draw upon, because although Cleo was talking about it from a business perspective, certainly some of the same things applied that you might have heard even Erin mention as well. And certainly I want to reiterate, when we think about facing fear or a transition change, as humans, we don't really like change. But when we think about those places, when we can go back to our core values, to what our purpose is, again, that is coming from a heart space, right? That's coming from somewhere else other than the turning hamster wheel. So when we give ourselves space to connect to that, then we can ask the questions, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do? Which is a very empowering position, other than I've lost complete control over this situation, and we're looking externally for anchors or for somebody to fix it outside of us, or to blame, to look outside of ourselves, when we can connect back to our own heart space and go, okay, what is my value here? How should I behave? Again, when we think of courage, it is speaking and acting from the heart. One of the other things that I quite like that she had talked about is it's okay to grieve, right? To have this moment of sadness, as we move through change, grief is a part of the transition. Even when the loss is not necessarily of a loved one, but it's a loss of something else, that it's important for us to grieve that so that we can kind of give ourselves space to move forward. And certainly that was part of the conversation with Aaron about creating a new life for himself, because the one before it was unmanageable, right? So he had to leave everything that was in his life before to create something new that was based on a core value of more positive and humility, and coming from a different place in his own being. And certainly Chloe reiterated that for her it was a place of generosity and helping others and being connected to her community. And so as we think about how we move through change in our own lives, it's so important to kind of go back to those kind of core principles, if you will. So this last interview, I'm going to put a few caveats. So this interview is actually with my daughter, Natasha. And so, I'm going to caveat this by saying she's a comic. She has a bit of sass. So please take that into context as you listen to this. There's actually a short version. So this is about 10 minutes long, this next segment, but it is actually a longer version that's available to you if you want to watch the whole thing, where she does get into a lot more sass with her mother. I will come back at the end of it and give you some of the links for that. So give me a moment here to once again share. So, hi, Natasha. Could you introduce yourself?
Well, you just said my name.
Oh, who are you? And what do you do for a living?
I'm Asha. You really want me to say my job? Okay, well, I work as a grocery manager.
Okay, and what else do you do?
I do stand-up comedy. I'm a comic.
Okay. So we're talking about stories of courage. What does courage mean to you?
I don't know, I guess overcoming fear.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So can you tell me how courage has played a role in your life?
Oh, I mean, I have an anxiety disorder, so every day I have courage. Just getting outside can be having courage sometimes. I don't know. I guess for a lot of people, they probably think that stand-up comedy takes courage, but I don't have fear of that, so that's not really an example I would use of courage. That's more of an artistic outlet. Because I like attention, so it's actually, there's no fear involved. I guess, I don't know. I get scared of a lot of things, and I have to overcome them.
How have you been dealing with your anxieties lately?
I don't leave my house. I try to call people to distract me. I don't know. There's a lot of, I don't know. Probably not in a good way.
Do you have some help strategies?
Yeah, I mean, you try to do breathing techniques if you can. Those are helpful. I think for me, my anxiety is much more manageable when I'm getting proper sleep, when you're drinking enough water. For me, when I'm like eating a certain way, helps my anxiety as well. But that's hard to do sometimes.
Especially when you work your jobs and you don't.
Yeah, when you work multiple jobs and you're also like producing shows and doing a lot of things, sometimes that can cause anxiety. And for me, then I usually then I don't want to like deal with it. But sometimes, I don't know, lately I've been finding that like setting a timer for an hour and just like addressing certain things for that hour is helpful, because it doesn't seem like a lot, and then I can go off and do whatever I want outside of that for the rest of the day. So that's been helping me for things, because oftentimes like I'll wake up anxious and it's about like one task that I just been putting off doing, and it affects like my whole day. So it's just trying to find a way to like deal with that task is important. For sure. If I ever, sometimes like there'll be like randomly once in a blue moon before a show, I just get like a wave of anxiety that like never happens. And I just tell myself, like, I always think worst case scenario, and I just work through it that way. So I'm like, what would happen if I did throw up on stage? Then I'm like, well, I guess I would be known as the girl that threw up on stage. I don't know. I guess you would like run off stage. Like, these are just the things I think about, and it makes me feel better, because then I have like a contingency plan for like if those happen. And so then by the time I get on stage, I'm not like really thinking about it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think I've participated in a few of those conversations.
Well, I actually watched Amy Schumer's docuseries called Expecting, and she had like that really horrible, I forget what it is, condition that you throw up like every day. And it's actually really serious, because 1 in 3 babies die, like, get nutrients. And she literally would have like garbage bins like on stage. And I was like, well, if Amy Schumer can do it, then I can do it. Like, whatever. I'll just tell people I'm pregnant like all the time. Just constantly, I'm pregnant. Never makes it further than just, I think.
The first trimester all the time.
Oh, constantly. And you can. It's like when you say you're on your period to people, when you just like want them to leave you alone.
Does your dog help?
No, my dog gives me more anxiety, actually, because she's 15 and she's deaf and blind, and she costs so much money, and she's so stressful. And every day I just have to like poke her and hope that she's still breathing, because I can't deal with if she was dead. And I wouldn't even know what to do with her body. And then all my Google searches are like, what to do with the dead body of a dog. And I'm like, what if somebody sees these searches and thinks I'm trying to kill my dog? But I'm not trying to kill my dog. So yeah, no, it gives me a lot of anxiety having a dog. So, if anyone's watching this, like, this is just, people are like this, man. Everybody's dealing with the struggle, so don't worry about it.
Do you find that during the pandemic it got worse, or is it always the same?
At first, when the pandemic happened, I was working from home because I have an autoimmune disease, so we didn't have PPE, so I couldn't work at work if I didn't have a mask. And it was really nice. Like, honestly, I like enjoyed having forced time off, because I was doing multiple shows sometimes a night, every night. So it was really nice, like, to relax and just like work in my own comfort zone. And then we had to go back to work, and then that gave me anxiety, because I work very front facing with like, I work in an organic market, so that's like just a distinct type of person that shops at my store, so which can add more anxiety for sure. So I think now is the most anxious I felt during the pandemic than at the beginning, where some people would say the exact opposite, like, oh, it was really rough at the beginning, but then now I'm getting used to it. And I'm saying, I think now I feel more anxiety than I did at the beginning.
when you couldn't
Real.
self-isolate?
What?
Because you can't self-isolate now as much.
Yeah, and things are reopening, so like comedy's back. So now I'm back to on a schedule of shows, which adds its own added elements. And
You mentioned you were producing a show. Would you like to put a plug in for it?
well, I don't think anybody's going to be in Edmonton.
Well, there's people all over the country that'll watch this.
Oh, I didn't realize this was so fancy. You can follow me on Instagram. It's at Natasha Lynn Miles, one N and with a Y is Miles. And yeah, there's 6 shows coming up during the Reset Festival at the Grindstone Theatre in Edmonton. It's improv sketch. Stand-up is this festival. It's supposed to kind of be taking place because there's no Fringe happening this year. So, and my series of shows are called Black Laughs Matter, and it's a BIPOC show, purely stand-up, featuring a lot of great BIPOC artists in Edmonton. And I will be hosting a couple nights. I'm actually headlining, and yeah, it'll be really funny. And I don't really have any anxiety about doing the show, but yes, it takes courage to produce shows because you worry if people are going to show up, and you have to be organized, and I'm not organized. I think a big part of overcoming courage is being honest with yourself and realistic about what you can and cannot do, and communicating that to people when you need to. Sometimes I'm just like, I can't do it, I'm sorry. Or I am like, I need to do it a certain way. And
Because one of the definitions of courage, like Brené Brown says, it's speaking and acting from the heart.
I hate a Brené Brown quote, but sure, you want to post. It's very probably on brand to whoever's watching this. She has a podcast. I'm sure you all listen to it. I'm not a fan.
Okay. How about this definition from Wikipedia? Courage,
strength
in the face of pain, fear, and grief.
I would say yes, because oftentimes when I'm really in like a deep fear mode, I am in pain. Like it can come out in like physical pain, and it can make me like have real nausea and like throw up, or it can like me have like heart palpitations and stuff. So it is crazy that I don't know, fear can cause that. For so little day-to-day things, like crossing the street, like going on a bridge, or walking to a store. Yeah, I have a lot of fears. Honestly, therapy should be free.
I agree.
Well, that's a weird hot take to take as a therapist. How would you get?
Well, I would. We offer free. No, we offer free walking counseling at Family Service Regina.
Well, that's nice. I don't think that exists here.
It does, actually.
In Edmonton?
Yeah. Most major cities have.
Well, drop a link.
I will.
Sure. There's also actually, if you are in the Alberta area, there's an Instagram that I started following, and it's Alberta Black Therapy Network. So if you are Black, I don't know, I'm sure you're not watching this. This is not on brand for this girl, but if you are Black and watching this, you can get on there. And there's a whole list of Alberta Black therapists. This is really cool. A lot of them are doing virtual right now. Some are in like Lethbridge. I'm like, stay safe, like God. I mean, I hope people find this a little bit funny, because it's like I'm trying to make you laugh. And it's called courage. I don't like being interviewed, especially not by my mother, but here I am overcoming a fear.
I didn't say that who you. Okay, fair warning. So a couple of things. Natasha's Instagram is at Natasha Lynn Miles. one N, MYLES. She mentioned Alberta Black Therapist Network. It's also on Instagram. It's Alberta Black Therapist Network. And there is walk-in counseling available in most major cities in Canada, including Edmonton. And if you Google free walk-in counseling and the name of your city, you'll probably find it. Sometimes there's a wait list or it's harder to get in. I know even here in Regina, sometimes we fill up pretty quickly for our slots, but we have it available Monday to Friday. And in most major cities, there is free walk-in counseling. It might just require you to do a bit of a Google search. And there are also low-cost options. Most therapists, including myself, do sliding scale to ensure that everyone has access to mental health support. There is a longer interview. In fact, I tried to finish the interview with Natasha and she wanted to keep talking. So we do talk a little bit about racism and some trauma and some of the things that have happened as a result of her life that contributes to her anxiety, but also some of the ways she deals with that. So part of the things I hope you heard kind of said was, one of the things is a lot of times we feel overwhelmed, especially when we have fears. It can become very overwhelming. And if we're juggling too many things, multitasking, I think all three of the people interviewed tonight mentioned things. And one of the strategies is just stopping, taking a step back. You know, Erin mentioned pulling over, taking a few moments to meditate or pray. Cleo also talked about taking some time and just thinking about, am I on the right track, right? Reflecting before moving forward. And Natasha did as well, talking about even setting the timer and, okay, here's what I need to deal with, dealing with one thing and giving herself the time to move through that. Relieves some pressure. And sometimes that is the act of courage, even in facing, okay, this is really tough. It is tough to be in pain, to be in a state of grief over a loss, or to be in fear, right? When we're, it does take a lot to kind of rally up the strength in order to move forward in a different way. And to find out, like, what is that best next step? What is the best next step for me, for my business, for my life, whatever that may look like for you. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed listening to these stories and got a couple of tidbits about it, or just recognized yourself in some small way, or got a laugh or two out of it. I so appreciate you being here and participating in the Mindful Healing Space community, and I look forward to working more with you and seeing more engagement from everyone as time moves on. Next week, Sydney is going to be doing a webinar on getting unstuck, and it'll certainly be a great lead in from closing out this conversation on courage this month and moving into the September theme of shift, which I think is a great theme for as we're moving into a different season, into the fall, and shifting energies and shifting, also going back to work for many people, going back to school, and all of those things happening around the world, around the country, I should say, and certainly shifting around the world. And what does that look like? And how do we respond, right, with that courage? Now, that conversation of, how do we act out from our own heart space, what's best for us, connecting to what's best for us, and doing so in a way that's mindful. So at the end of the day, we have to live with ourselves. So thank you so much for joining, and I wish you the very best of the evening or whenever you might be watching this. Take care.